All right, next thing we're going to talk about is keyboard shortcuts, or shortcut keys as some people call them. And this is going to save you a lot of time, but keep in mind, if you have to use more than, I would say, two or three keys, then realistically it's probably faster just to use the mouse. So I hate when I see people, they say, oh, hit Alt and then this and then this, and it's like, oh my goodness, you hit all those keys, you could just use the mouse and be more efficient and quicker. So sometimes it's not really faster to use the shortcut keys unless you're really comfortable with them and you don't have to think about it. And to be honest, I think there's only a few that I'll go through here that actually does save you some time. So first thing I'm going to want to show you, which saves a lot of time, is let's say I had 1,000 rows of data here. Look at how long it would take me to find 1,000 rows. See how long I'm scrolling down for? Here's 300, 400. And then sure, you could say, okay, if you want to go faster, hit the page down. So I'm hitting page down, clicking it, almost at 1,000 now. Okay, now I wanted to go to 2,000. So you can hold the down arrow. There I get to 2,000. Let's say I want to go to 10,000. Look, I'm holding the page down key right now. Look at how long it's taking me to go to 10,000. So keep in mind, we're assuming there's data here, and data goes all the way down to 10,000. And we're almost there. There's 10,000. See how long that took? Now, if I had data that goes all the way down to 10,000, one thing I could, and let's just assume for the sake of the argument here that this row 21 is actually 10,000. So what this keyboard shortcut is you hold the control button and you press down, the down arrow key. So here I am, I'm gonna hit the control and down. See what it does? It goes all the way down until it hits a space. So usually that means that's the end of your data set. Now be careful. Be careful if you have some spaces in here, then if you hit control down here, it'll stop here, but then just hit control down once and then twice more, and then you'll get to the end of the data. So, so assuming you don't have data or issues with your data, meaning blanks in your data, the control down is the best way to go. And even if you do have a few blanks, it's not hard, because you could because here I'm going to scroll all the way down. So 1, 2, see how many times, and look at that. I hit control down a few times and I'm already down 1 million lines, which is the Excel maximum. So try doing that using the page down or any other method, and I guarantee it won't be possible. It'll take you hours and hours and hours and days, and that's not efficient. As you know, we all love to be efficient. That's my specialty. So that is the control down method. So this also works control up, control left, control right. So very, very nice keys to use. And so let me copy this data. So now we're going to learn Control C. Control C. I'm going to highlight all my data I want to copy. This is how you copy and paste. And then I'm going to right click here. Or, I'm sorry, I'm not going to right click. I'm going to hit Control and V as in Victor. So Control C like Charlie to copy, and Control V like Victor to paste. And you're like, hey Mike, that's not the most efficient way. There's lots of quicker ways to do it. So, okay, let's do it real quick. So while we're on the topic, right? so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit, so I could literally go like this and then just to highlight the data. But what I'm gonna do, what I like doing is Control and Shift and use the down arrow. Now it highlights everything. So just like the control down arrow that we used before, we had a shift, and guess what? You're highlighting all the data. So now instead of hitting Control C, so let me just start over real quick. So Control Shift down, and this is actually the most efficient way to do basically the copy and paste method. So you see this little down arrow, or this little box in the bottom right. See, you can barely just see it above my cursor. See how cursor changes from this to this on the bottom right? So if you left click that and drag it to the right, boom, there you go. That'll copy the whole thing over. So you have control, the copy, you have the paste, you have lots of different ways to do it. And this is the fastest way by far, most efficient way to do it. So now we learned Control C, Control V. That's probably the most important thing to learn so far. Now let's learn Control F for find. If we wanted to find the word John, for example, let's hit find next. There it is, John. And if you want to hit find next again, yes, Johnson does have the word John in it, so that's going to work. All right, and is there any more? Nope, just those two. And if you hit find all, what that will do is I'll highlight every single reference of John and show you the value of it. So this is John, this is a Johnson, and what cells they're in, what cell reference, A3 or B4. You could ignore these dollar signs around them. I'll do that in a few minutes. All right, so this is kind of nice if you wanted to see how many times, you know, a word or phrase is in your Excel document. And then while we're here, so we hit Control F, which is find, also foundable using the home and hitting this find on the far right. That's what this find does. Now, also see this find replace right here. So this replace button, this is also gotten to by hitting Control H. So what if I wanted to replace John with Joe? And if you hit replace, it'll do it one at a time, but hey, I like to do the whole document, so let's just do all at once, and that's most efficient. So replace all. Now the strange thing is, look at it. Hey, it made 2 replacements. I don't want 2 replacements. I only wanted 1 because there's only 1 first name of John. So let's undo that. Oh, see what happened? You have the word Johnson, and it changed it to, what was it changing it to? Joe. So obviously I only wanted to change a first name. I didn't want it to change Johnson to Joson. So how do I get around that? So best practice when you're using find replace is to highlight just the data that you want and then hit your Control H. H is in house. Then when you do replace all, it's only going to change that 1. So it's very good to know what you're referencing there. Next thing we're going to learn for shortcut keys is Control P. Now Control P will get you a print. So I use this once in a while, not too common, you know, just probably once after you're done with the spreadsheet. And then if you want, you can hit Control S as in Sam, and this will save your document. Okay, so it won't come up with a new box or anything. It'll just save it as the same name. So I'm pressing it right now. You can see the cursor kind of changing right now. So I'm hitting it a bunch of times right now. So that is save. I use that frequently. And one other one I like to use for keyboard shortcuts is, so if you highlighted this group of data here, and Control B is in boy, this will bold it. So that's why this is, so it's the same as doing this in the ribbon right here. So it bolds it. If you hit Control B again, it undoes it. Same thing with Control I. Control I will put things in italics, just like this will do. And Control U will underline your data. Control U again will undo it if you hit the keyboard shortcut properly. That is most of them, and then the last one I use is probably my favorite, because what it does is it does a undo. One does an undo and one does a redo. So let's say I typed this data over here, and I wanted to, you know, I have a cell over here referencing it, and I use this when I a lot of times when I want to see something, a before and an after picture, to see, okay, something on my spreadsheet's changing, but I don't know what and I don't know why. So I'll do a lot of undos and redos, similar to this right here. So that's the same thing. I think it's in, let's see, where is it at? I think it's in data. I'm not sure exactly where it's at. I never use it in here because I have the undo and redo in my keyboard, or in my quick access toolbar. So I use it in there. I don't really use too much in this because everything I use is built into there. But it's in here somewhere. right, so let's do so the keyboard shortcut is going to be CTRL Z will undo what you did, same as hitting the back button. And the forward button, or the redo, is technically CTRL Y. So basically, I'll go and do this a lot. I'll do CTRL Z, CTRL Y. I can see back and forth. And when I do this on people's computers and I'm helping diagnose Excel problems, people are like, "Whoa, what are you doing? What? It's going so quick. How do you know what you're doing? And how did you do that?" And, you know, people love that. It's very efficient. Everybody loves to do these. So this is the last shortcut that I believe is very common that you should definitely put in your little arsenal. Next thing we're going to talk about is sorting and filtering. So if we wanted to sort this data, what we would do is we could highlight all of it, all of our data here, and go to data, and we will sort using the sort button here. And it automatically knew that these are headers, probably because it's bolded. Sometimes it knows it, sometimes it doesn't. So if it wasn't correct, you could always change it and click this button and it'll highlight the top row or not. So this is how to sort the data. So it's very important that you highlighted all of your data. If you didn't highlight your data, Excel would prompt you. So here's an example. So let's say I only clicked here and I said, hey, I want to sort all this data and I want to see the highest salaries first, and I wanted to see the highest to lowest from the salary perspective. So if I hit sort right here, it's going to highlight it all for me. Now, if let's say I highlighted only a little subset of it, and I hit sort, it's going to say, whoa, hey, here's a warning. Do you want to expand it and do the whole, the whole group of data almost like a table? Or do you want to continue and just sort this little section here? Obviously, you want to expand it, so you always want to make sure you're sorting the entire grouping here. So once you have this all highlighted, so yes, my data has headers. My headers are first name, last name, whatever. So first thing you want to do is sort by. So I want to sort by salary, and salary sort by color or anything like that. If you highlighted a couple of them in yellow, and then you could sort those if you want to do cell color and then it'd be yellow. But right now you can't do that. So these are only two that I ever really do. You can do the same thing with font and cell icon, but very few people use those. So we won't even talk about them. So I want to sort largest to smallest. And if I also wanted to see, hey, I can hit add level. What this does is say, okay, now that I sorted on salary, now I wanted to say, okay, I want to sort it by salary and then sort it by last name. So you could say, so then it would go, okay, highest to largest salaries, but then if two people had the same, let's say two people made $50,000, then it would also sort, it's also going to sort those two people by last name also. So, but I don't need this for this example, so you can do as many layers as you want. So I'm going to do that, and there we are. So you're going to see some repeat data because I copied and pasted this data earlier, just to give us some more rows. But yes, this is now sorted from salary highest to lowest. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we are going to filter. We're going to do an auto filter. So you can highlight all of these, or you can just highlight one, or you can highlight anywhere in the data. But it's always safest just to highlight your headers and then hit filter. And this is important. So what this will create a filter, almost basically like a table. And this will, it won't do anything below. Once it finds a space, it says, hey, this is the end of the data. Blank records all the way across. It's not going to mess with that. So it automatically knows that it's selecting this range here to sort. So here I can say, okay, first name, and I click this little down arrow. If I want to say, okay, do I want all the people in there? What if the first names, I only want to see first names of Martin and hit OK. It'll shrink my data to only these two. You guys can ignore this. This is for later on in this video. But so there's only two Martins. Martin Payne. Bonus points if you know who that is, everybody. So then you can select more than one person. So if we want to see Martin and Jane, so there you go. And you could do a, so it's only going to filter for those people. And now you could also sort, or you can sort this data also. If I wanted to take this and say, hey, click this while it's, okay, I don't want to see Jane on top, I want to see Martin on top. You click this little button again. You can say, hey, sort Z to A, so this is backwards, so alphabetical. So Z to A will put the Martins on top, or the Janes on the bottom. And instead of typing this in, what if you had 1 million of these, or let's say a couple thousand, and let's say you're looking at part numbers or SKUs or something, and you didn't want to try and scroll down and try and find the individual one, you could actually just type it in. You could type in SKU 1, 2, 3, 4. Obviously, I don't have any matches here, but if I did, let's say I wanted to type it. So it's going to automatically bring in like, and you hit OK, it'll only bring in likes. Same type of thing if you do text filter equals, or you could do not equals. So if you don't want, text of Mike, it'll bring in everybody but Mike. So that'll be this example. You could play around with this, a lot of different ways to use this. So let me undo this. So if I go to, let's see, clear filter from first name. So this is how you clear a filter. So this is your clear filter right here. And you could use multiple filters. So if I wanted to link department 1, 2, 3, 4, and then of a salary, I only wanted $50,000. So the 50's checked, and there we are. So you can, these are very, very nice features they have. I think this is new, I want to say in Excel 2007, it might be 2010, but this is definitely a newer feature in Excel, very nice to have. A lot of people use this even instead of pivot tables, definitely instead of doing the old sort method, they just put a filter on it and call it a day. Because they don't have to worry about, hey, did I sort everything or did I only sort a subset? This way it's all very clean, easy. Okay, everybody, the next topic we're going to talk about is text to columns. So this is a very nice feature of Excel, and here's how it's done. So here's my department number from the other tab. I'm going to get rid of the department number. And what I have here, so let's say, for instance, I do not want the 0 in front. So I wanted to change it to just 1, 2, 3, 4, and so forth all the way down. So how can I get rid of that? So there's a lot of different ways. One of the ways we're going to talk about now is text to column. So you go to the data tab up on top, you highlight your whole column that you want to change, and you hit text to columns right here. And now, I just want to make this a little bit bigger for you. So I want to get rid of this 0. Here's my text to columns. And what we're going to do is we're going to do fixed width. So I'll get into delimited. I'll explain that right after this. But for fixed width, this is what you want to use in this example. So what I did was I want to chop off the 0. So I'm going to put my mouse and click in between the 0 and the 1. So this is what this is going to do. It's going to chop off and it's going to make a split essentially in between the 0 and the 1 here, in the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Now if I want, I could add a couple more, but I don't really need to for this purpose. So I'm going to hit next. And okay, it's asking you, do you want to bring in, how do you want to bring in the 2 different columns? So this is going to be one column. It's going to be all zeros going down because that's what I chopped off. And then this is going to be the second column. So if I leave it like this, look, I like to bring it in as text, so I'm just going to bring it in as text. This is what happens. See, it split the column up in 2. Now maybe you're thinking, hey, I don't really want the zeros, so let me undo that and do text to columns real quick again. Fixed width, and instead of putting this text, I'm going to change the zeros to do not import, so skip it. So now, and then for this one, I'm going to put as text just because I like that. And now let's see what happened. it completely got rid of the zeros in front. It didn't bring it in two different columns anymore. So here's another instance why you want to use text to column. So let's say you have a list of these, let's say these are phone numbers here, and we want to change these to text to column. One way you could do it is you could do the fixed width, and how you would do this is you would click okay there, you'd click there, you'd click there, and you click there. Or actually, let me back up. So if you just clicked here, what you would end up with is 3 different columns. You'd end up with 1, 2, 3 in the first column. The second column, you'd end up with a dash 4, 5, 6 dash, and then the last column would be 7, 8, 9, 0. So obviously you probably don't want the dashes in there. So I'm going to highlight around the dashes too. So I'm going to click that many times. And now, you know, I leave these as text. I like text by default. And then these I'm not going to bring it in. So text, do not import, text, and there we go. This is how I split up the 3 pieces of a phone number. And obviously this is useful for a lot of different things. One other way, so I can highlight the whole column or highlight the row of data. The column of data doesn't really matter. So now, given that this has dashes already built in or some type of punctuation, and this does not, this had the, you know, the 0 in front. So this works because of the fact that when I did the 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, these department numbers. So keep in mind when you do when you do the fixed width, every single thing has to be the exact character length going all the way down. Like this, you know, this is what, 6, 10 digits. Phone numbers are 10 digits. But let's say down below they did not enter the area code, so it's only 7 digits. So because of that, the fixed width would not work. What would be nice in this example here is if we do delimited. So you'll do delimited. A lot of times you'll do comma, because when you bring in files, you'll see people reference CSV files. That's commas separated values. So that way, what they do instead of, that's how a lot of programs, you know, whether it be, you know, online tools like, you know, how I download my Visa statement or credit card statements. So they do that. A lot of companies for financial software, business software would do it as commas. So as soon as you click this, or let me show you an example. So right now I want to use a minus, because the minus or the dash is actually what I want to be the separator. This is asking you, hey, what's gonna be the separator? So as soon as I hit this minus here, see how I just inserted these lines here? So I'll undo that. What it's gonna do, it's gonna say, hey, take out the dashes and put, instead of the dashes, that's what I want you to split up the columns as. And then you hit next. And then of course I like to do text, text, text. And there we go. So that's the way you would use delimited. And I showed you over here how to do the fixed width. That is pretty much all you need to know about text to columns. Okay. So now, next topic we're going to talk about is how to remove duplicates. So there's a lot of different ways to remove duplicates. We're going to talk right now about the easiest one. And before I forget the text to columns, I believe that's a pretty new feature in Excel. So I want to say 2007. It might be 2010 that they added that. So you guys that are on those, you can be very happy you have that. So how to remove duplicates. So one way to do it. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, how to remove duplicates. I'm getting lost here. So much to teach, so little time, right? Okay, so how to remove duplicates. So if let's say I had these first names here. So as you can tell here, I do have some issues with first names. So I have Angela, Tommy, Tommy, Whitney. I have a lot of duplicates here. So one way you can do it is you can highlight all of your data. You can highlight the row, whatever you have, the column, and go to data, the data tab. Oh, let me make this bigger. I always forget to do that. So now that I have my data there, you highlight it, and then you hit remove duplicates on the data. So this is actually very new also. I want to say this is 2010. This is very nice. There's a chance 2007. Yeah, you guys can feel free to correct me and I'll update it accordingly, update these notes. And then what this is saying is, hey, what column do you think the duplicate record is in? It's in column A, that's all I got. And it says, okay, 7 duplicates found and removed. So it already deleted them out. And 12 unique remain, so I still have 12. So that is one way to do it. Now, but you're thinking, hey, Mike, why did Excel automatically remove them? Maybe I wanted to see which ones were duplicates before you even did. You're right. In that case, this is what I would do. And also this is what I used to do when I was working in older versions of Excel, like 2003. So there's a lot of you people out there that are still on the old versions, so no problem. So what I will do is I'm gonna do a count to if formula. Now I'm not gonna go into details on what a count if is and how to write it, but basically if you want to see what the count if is and all the formulas that I use throughout this whole program here. So what you want to do is just check out my videos. I have one video for almost every single popular formula or function, and in detail. So check those out. Make sure you check out my count ifs. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this range, do a comma. My criteria is this guy here. Is how much forget to lock. I'm going to have to lock this area here. So hit F4 here, F4 here. All right, and now I have my 1. So what this 1 is telling me is that there's only one record of John in this whole list. So that's unique, so that will not get removed. But hey, there's 2 Martins, is what it says, and oh, sure enough, there's my other Martin. So if you really wanted to see, so I can highlight my data here, and then I can do a sort, largest to smallest. My duplicates right there on top. So all these guys right here are duplicates. These are my unique guys. Okay, so that's a nice way to do it. If you wanted to see, especially if you wanted to see the old, whether you're on old versions of Excel or if you're on, if you wanted to see who's getting removed. All right, and now the last step we'll talk about is for how to remove duplicates is using a pivot table. So hey, let's go back to my original information here. So here's my little sample and say, hey, I don't want to bring it to a new sheet. I'm lazy, more efficient, right? As we all love it, more efficient. So I'm going to do a pivot table, and again, I'm not going to explain the whole pivot table design and how to do it. So I have a pivot table video. Make sure you check that out. Very powerful stuff in there. So I'm going to bring in my first name. There you go. There's my 12 again, all unique. Okay, so that's 3 different ways to remove duplicates. And the reason it works here is because within a pivot table, Excel does not care, and pivot table does not care about repeating duplicate values, because that's what a pivot table is for. It's all about being unique. All right, now we're going to talk about a fun one here. Even more fun than usual. I know everybody's all excited, right? So here we have data validation. So what this is, so we're going to go to the data tab and we're going to go to data validation. So what this is it's going to display a box, like a drop-down box. And a lot of people love this because people that aren't really Excel friendly, they can just click the box and then pick an option. So here, let me show you what. So let's say I wanted to have a yes, comma, no here. And this is a title, so I'm going to do that to it just to keep it different. Now for here, I'm going to say, hey, I want someone to actually click yes or no in here, or type it in, either way. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go to list. You could change, you could do numbers, you could do this, that, and the other thing. So for list, I'm going to say yes, comma, no. And notice how I wrote this. This is case sensitive, okay? So it does matter if it's uppercase, lowercase. It's going to be this zip. If they type in anything but this, it will not work. All right, so there you go. See this little drop-down box? And there's no drop-down here, so it's just for one cell. So I hit this, and boom, I can just click yes without even typing anything. How nice and efficient is that, right? And managers love this because they don't have to know a lot in Excel. They don't want to type a lot. They don't want to do certain things. So how you can copy this down, just bring this to the end of your sheet here. Copy down so you can see the little drop down is there, so you don't have to you don't have to redo it the whole way. And watch what happens now. Let me just undo that because I don't need that. Let me just show you what happens. So I can type in yes instead of instead of selecting with my mouse. Watch this now. So if I typed in yes, all capitalized, hey, because that looks ugly, it says, hey, that's not what you said would fit this criteria. So you said, hey, only make the options a proper, uppercase and lowercase, they call it proper case. Proper case, yes, proper case, no. So that is not acceptable. So just like I can't do a lowercase no or anything like that, it's going to give me an error message. So it has to be properly cased. Okay, so, and again, you can always change it by, changing these. And now let's say, hey, you've got a larger list you want to do data validation on. And let me just get rid of that data validation there. All right, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, this time I'm going to make them all lowercase. So yes, and a maybe. If you want to have even more down here, you can. No problem. But what I want to do is, so now I'm going to go back to list. List is probably the most frequently one used. Then I'm going to hit this little button over here on the right and click on the source. So this is going to say, hey, select the cells you want it to be equal to. So instead of typing in yes, comma, no, and in this example, I would type in yes, comma, no, comma, maybe. Maybe or something might change, and maybe it's going to change to this or that, or or blank. You can essentially copy it as far down as you want, but then you might see blanks later. So just highlight this section here for now. So now that's what the reference is going to be. And now there you go. You can do yes, no, and maybe. And if this changes, so let's change this to sometimes. I don't have to go back into data validation. This will automatically go back to the cell references. So very nice to have. And if anybody knows any tricks or cheats that I don't know about or didn't mention in this video, I'm trying to give about a good 90% of what all the Excel knowledge I know in this video. So make sure you throw something in the comments saying, hey, here's another trick you didn't mention or maybe don't know about. Never know, I love learning new things, everybody. So please, teach me like I'm teaching you. All right. One more thing about data validation. So this is very nice because one thing I do is on a personal note, I track all my bills. I export all my bills from my credit cards into an Excel spreadsheet that I call my little monthly bill tracker. So what I do is I develop a list like this that says, okay, whether it's, let's say these are all my expenses for the month, all my bills. So I have McDonald's bill, I ate out there, I ate out at Taco Bell, I have a whole bunch of bills. So here I would have, let's say, eating out expense. Eating out. I have movies expense. Here I would have gas for the car. So, and then this way, I can go through and categorize, okay, this is related to gas, and then on the front page, I'll have a summary and saying, hey, so I can actually tell you guys how much I spend per month for the past several years since I've been tracking it. And to be honest, it's saved a lot of time, obviously it's not saving time, excuse me, it is saving money, because I notice what things are going up, what things are going down. When we have real high gas prices, you can totally tell. Spikes with with Comcast going up, stuff like that. So very important. I'll be doing a separate video on that. But this is a very nice feature that I use a lot, and obviously I use it to categorize things, categorize my bills and stuff like that. All right. So now what we're going to do is talk about grouping and ungrouping. So this is also pretty new in Excel. I want to say 2010 also, might be 2007. And what this does is, so if I wanted to say, okay, hey, I want to take these Angela, so I'm going to group them. See what just happened over here on this far left? It inserted a box and shifted everything over a little bit. So I can hit minus, and now I do not see Angela in here at all. Now you might be wondering, hey, does it add the dollars in there or not? So let me just undo that and show you real $4,800. That's a bonus. And realistically, if I summed Jeff through the first Tommy, I get $18,200. Once I hide him, once I hide Angela, I'm not going to get. I only have $9,000. Now be very careful when you use it. So, you know, I've seen it where sometimes it does add it, sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes you're working with subtotals. Subtotals is very similar to grouping, which we'll get into later if there's any interest in it. So nice to have, because you don't have to hide all the details. So if you had let's say both Angelas, let's say I actually had a total here. So let me call this total, and here I'll do my little sum here. Sum. All right, so this is my total now, and now I'm gonna go in here and ungroup these. So that's not the grouping that I want. What I want to do is I want to present this to my manager and say, hey, you know, maybe I only want to see, you know, let's say I want to sort this first of all and say, hey, I don't want to see all the nitty gritty, all the different people. I want to see salary from largest to smallest, and then hey, I don't want to see anybody below $20,000. So I will take anybody below $20,000 salary here. Whoops, sorry, let me put my freeze panes on. All right, so you can see better. And anybody below $20,000. You can either hide it, you can right click and hide it, but then I hate that, because you get spreadsheets and see what happens between 12 and 20. You know, if you didn't know Excel very well, you'd be like, hey, where is it? You know, what happened? You know, the stuff doesn't add up. But then, you know, people who don't know Excel as easily, when you add this, so I'm going to add a group here. So click group, and then it adds this, you know, it puts all these in a group. I hit minus. So I don't want to show it. So hey, here's anybody at $20,000, and then here's the total. Now keep in mind, this total is still going to add the ones that are hidden. So see how if I add these up right here, it adds to $389,000, but here is $508,000 because it's still adding what is not shown. There's a way using a subtotal formula. I think it's like subtotal 9 or something, where it only shows data that is shown physically on the page, so it would not show this data. Okay, so in this case, what I would do if I was doing this to my manager is I would insert a line here and call it other, and I would take this and say sum all these hidden ones, and that's what I would do. And I'd ungroup this, and now I have the proper numbers. Now when my manager sums this and says, hey, $508,000, and here's your 508, so it matches. So this is how I would do it. Just make sure that, you know, this is shown, like, you know, so that this grouping adds to this properly. So let me undo a lot of that now, because I don't want to mess up my little spreadsheet here. I use this for all my videos. All right, so undo. Yes, it's quality video. Gotta watch in the undos. And if you didn't watch my video earlier, undo like I just did is Control Z as in zebra. And if I want to go back and forth, it's Control Z and Control Y. That'll go forward and backwards. And I toggle between them all the time. You'll see it in videos. And you wonder how I do it so quick. That's the reason, because of little shortcuts like that. Now we're going to talk about a very quick how to change your numbers in Excel. Let's say you highlighted, or let's say you sent in something to your manager, and he's like, "Hey, you sent in a spreadsheet right here, but I don't want to see this in thousands. These are whole dollars, so these are whole." He wants to say, "Hey, I want to see this in thousands, so I don't want it to be 50,000. I want it to be 50, and this to be 5." So, okay, what am I going to do? I don't want to rewrite these numbers since they're all hard coded. It's, you know, it's not very friendly when they're hard-coded numbers. Hard-coded meaning there's no formula in here. So one thing you can do is you can go like this and type in equals divided by $1,000. And there's your 50, and then you can drag the formula across 50 and the 5, and then double-click down. And then you could say copy, right-click, and do this paste special values. And there it is. But you see how long that took? I mean, that is a way most people would do this, to be honest. But hey, I'm not like most people. I like to be as efficient as possible, and that's why I'm making this video, right, guys? So what I would recommend doing is doing a typing, we could type 1000 anywhere you want. Type in 1000 and type in do a copy, and then highlight all the data that you want changed by 1000. Right click and you do paste special. This is where it's nice. So what I want to do is I want to divide this by 1000. So I already copied the 1000, and now so I can multiply it, I can divide it by, I can add 1000 to every single number here. If I subtracted it, it would take $50,000 minus 1000, put a 49,000 in, and no one will be the wiser. So I'm going to divide, because that's what we want. We want to divide by 1000. And there we go, look at that. And then we put our dollars back in there, and there it is, $50. So very nice feature, right? I'm sure not too many people know about that one. Every time I explain this to someone, they're like, wow, that's amazing. But it actually is really cool. Like I said, I love learning new things, love teaching things. So if anybody's got any questions like this. Now, one thing I would recommend, if you're doing, let's say, I'm not sure if it's going to work or not, so bear with me here. So I'm going to highlight all these again. Try the same thing, paste special. I'm going to do formulas and divide. So that doesn't do it. Okay, what I was hoping for was this is $50,000. So I'm just going to say this is equals $50,000, because this way you're not messing with the original thing, because you never know. Managers just change their mind all the time. Hey, I want some thousands. Hey, I don't want it in thousands. So what I like to do sometimes is, so if I went copy here and then see what this equals D3. Now if I do paste special and I do formula and divide, see what happens? It puts the $1,000 inside of a formula now. So now if you didn't want to see that, or someone wanted to track your work and be like, hey, why is this only 50? It should be 50,000. And then they'll see a reference here and say, oh, you're referencing this and then dividing by 1,000. So one way you can do it is just take these columns, hide them, and this way you only see the 50. But if someone was checking your work, they'd be like, oh, I understand, because otherwise they won't know what happened. Because these are just hard-coded, and when I changed it, it was only 50. So it messed it up. Does that make sense to everybody? So I like to always see and track formulas. So more I can do formulas, the happier I am. I hate to see hard-coded numbers because nobody knows where it comes from except the original person. Okay, everyone, now we're going to talk about a very fun topic. As if you're having so much fun already, I know everybody's excited to learn about Pivottables. So this is a very powerful tool. It's very robust, very similar to building a table and sorting. So it's like combining the best of both worlds. Very good for analytics. So if you're an analyst, I'm sure you either have had to use Pivottables or you're here to learn them, and that's why you're here watching this video. So very nice thing to use. So let me put this title back on here. All right, so how you're going to do a pivot table is you're going to do an insert, click anywhere inside of the data, and do pivot table. See how it automatically highlights everything up until it hits a space on the right and a space on the bottom. So you could also highlight whatever you feel comfortable with, but see how much time it takes to highlight that. And yes, keep in mind this is only 20 rows or something like that. So definitely, I recommend. I mean, if you want to be safe, then do the slower way. But I like to just click anywhere in my data. So then it'll automatically select it for you. It knows that my headers are there, and then I'm gonna hit OK. So the only time that I would use this tab right here, choose external data source. Use an external data source. So this is what you would use. You would click choose connection, and then it'll come up to your basically your file manager on your computer. So if you had something on your desktop or somewhere else you wanted to be, or your hard drive. So the only time I've ever used this, to be honest, is when I'm bringing in the Access database. So if let's say I had because Excel only holds 1 million rows. So in the old versions of Excel before 2007, it only used to hold 65,000 records. So that's not much. I deal with several 100,000 records on a daily basis for my work. So I would constantly using Access because I can hold millions and millions. I don't even know what the limit is in Access, to be honest, but I've already used 10 million no problem. And then, so you can choose a connection, you can link to an Access database and then bring in a pivot table that way. So, and then down here, this selecting new worksheet is just going to open up a whole new worksheet. That's all it's going to do. Or you can say, hey, I don't want to add a new worksheet. I want to put my pivot table right here, and that's where your pivot table would start. All right. So I'm going to go to new worksheet, and one thing I like to do. So this is the new pivot table that changed in 2007. So I like the old versions, and I'm going to show you the old version first, just because I prefer it. It's much easier for newer people to learn, especially. And I hate the fact that eventually I'm sure it's going to go away. So I'm definitely going to teach you both ways. So what I did here was I right-clicked anywhere inside of pivot table options, what you want. And I'm sorry, I'm going to make this a little bigger for you, everybody. All right, there we go. So right-click, pivot table options, and then on here, we are going to go to Display tab and Classic Pivot Table Layout. This enables the dragging and dropping of fields. That's very nice, okay? So we hit OK, and it changed it like this. This gives you a layout so you know where your fields are going to go. So your first name, your last name. So you can just literally drag and drop them. You're either going to drag it and drop it into this box here, this box here. So 1, 2, 3, or 4 fields. That's all the places you can drop it in. So let's drop in first name first. So my first name is there. There's my names, and I'm gonna bring in salary into my. See how? So I'm left clicking and dragging. So you see how this box around here goes bolded, versus up here versus here. See how it goes bolded? It's so nice to do drag and drop things. It's almost like having an iPhone, like, you know, swiping and stuff. So, so definitely nice to have. So there's my salary, and if I wanted something going across, okay, sure, I'll have department over here going on top. And now this gives me a look of, here's my names by department and, you know, their corresponding dollars. So I know that Dave, you know, without looking at this list here, you know, it's going to add. So I know there's 2 Angelas. There's 2 Angelas here. Together they make $92,000. But I don't want to. What if I don't know there's only 2? Obviously, this is only a sample data, you know, 20 rows. This will add everything and break it out by department. So, and let me just change one thing. So one thing I like to do is when I bring in the value, this is a value field down here, values. So anything you're bringing in with $1, right click and go to value field settings. You can do it anywhere in here, anywhere in this big box. Value field settings, and go to number format. So right now it's saying, hey, I'm going to sum it. If you wanted to, you can say, hey, give me a count, give me an average, min, max, and a lot of other stuff that I never even used, to be honest. So sum is most common. Once in a while you use a count or an average. If you're doing percents, maybe average is coming into play. Count would be like, hey, if I wanted to count and say how many Angelas are in this department, it would come up with a 2. So that's, you know, that's nice. I use that once in a while, but mostly it's sum. So I'm going to go to number format here, change it to number. I don't like to see any decimals. I want to see commas, and this is the one I like to do. I mean, this is all custom. You can do whatever you want. So once I hit OK, now it looks pretty. I have my commas there. I don't want dollar signs because I don't like dollar signs, to be honest, when I'm looking at numbers, because a dollar sign kind of looks like an S or something, or a 5. So I don't want to see that. Just sometimes less is better. And those of you in accounting, maybe you know what I mean. But I think most of us are probably forced to use dollar signs anyways. So if you don't want to see this little section, see how, because it's making your screen kind of small, you can hit either this X button, or you can go to the Analyze tab and click on this field list. See how it goes on and off, or you can exit off, same type of thing. And if you accidentally clicked off of your pivot table, like I clicked down here, the list is gone. Anytime you click back on the pivot table, it'll show up again. And I know I'm going kind of quick, but I have a whole pivot table video, if you guys haven't checked it out yet. Explains it even more detail than this, assuming you want more detail, which maybe you don't. I'm full of all this extra information, so I'm here to put it down all down in the same place. So what I'm going to do is, so let's say I want to look at last name now. So we have one more box we need to talk about, and that's the filter, drop filter here. So I'm going to bring in last name and move it up here and say, okay, now it's going to give me this information and say, okay, I only want to see last names of, let's say, Payne. And if you hit this button, you can select multiple different people. This select multiple items, but I only want to see Payne. So I want to see only first names that relate with the last name of Payne. And sure enough, it's Martin Payne. This is how much money he makes, this department. So extra credit if you know who Martin Payne is. One of my favorites. All right, and if you don't want to see grand total here because it's kind of stupid, you know, you have $38,000. You know, I have a grand total here and a grand total here. There's only one person. One thing you can do is go to right-click, pivot table options, tools and filters, and this is your grand totals here. So if I take it off the rows and take it off the columns, it'll just be that then. So sometimes you're working with percents, and it doesn't really make sense to add because by default, all it's going to do is add. It's not going to, take percentages properly most of the time unless you really know what you're doing. So if I also wanted to, I'm just backing up a few. So I could take my department now and I can move it. So I'm going to move my department and say, hey, I don't want it in here. I want it up in the filter area up here. So now, boom, it just changed like that. That's why I like this whole drag and drop methodology. See how quick I can just move it and slice the data. Now, if I wanted to see it all up and down, I don't want to see anything going to the right. Oh, Angela, this department, first name department, all there next to each other. And you're saying, oh, this is really messed up. I don't like seeing it like this. And yeah, I agree with you. But one thing you can do now is you can right-click on anybody in this first field, go to field settings, and change subtotals. See, right now it's saying, hey, I'm going to subtotal every single time, whether or not I have one person, 10 people, doesn't really matter. So I'm going to hit none, and there we are. So now it's not going to get any subtotals. So you just have to visually know that here's your total. Okay, so nice feature to have. And if you didn't want this to say sum of salary, because a lot of times I don't like to see that because again, less is more. So what you can do anytime you wanted to change one of these titles, you don't have to change it on the data here. You can actually change it here. So I'm going to right click, value field settings, and you hit and delete this. Now, see what just happened there? It gave me an error message that says, hey, you can't name it salary. You already have salary in your data. So you can't have two salaries. So what I like to do is just, no one's the wiser, I just hit a space. So now it's salary space. It's a unique field, there's salary. So that's how to do the classic pivot table layout. And now, one more thing about pivot tables is, so I'm just gonna make this back clean. If I drag this off, see how this becomes an X versus over here? See the cursor changes to an X on the bottom right of it? This just means, hey, I'm gonna get rid of the field. You know, sure, it's in my, once I go to field list over here, it's still over here, but it's taking it off the little pivot table. Okay, so one more thing I wanted to show you real quick. So if I had my salary and I had my bonus in here, so I have salary and bonus. And again, I'm going to change this to the proper formatting. So it's all the same. So now what I want, see how ugly this is, see some of this. I just want to see salary and bonus. So that's what I was telling you before. I'll just delete this, hit the space button, good enough, bonus. So that's what I would do normally if I'm presenting this. So if you wanted to say, hey, give me a bonus as a percentage of salary, then what you're going to do is go into Analyze, Fields, Items, and Sets, and do a calculated field. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make my own field. Sure, you could do this in your data tab, but you know there may be reasons when you want to use it in here also. So I'm going to call this bonus percentage of salary. I'm going to double click bonus, divide by salary, and then I'm going to add that, and there it is there. Okay, and there it is. Now this is obviously a percent, so I'm going to change this to percent. Two decimal places. All right, there we go. So that's how you would add a calculated field inside of a pivot table. And again, if you don't want to see, you can click it on or off. Now it's actually in here. It does not affect your sample here, meaning your data set, but it is here. Okay, and then last thing we'll talk about with this pivot table is you can change design. So if you wanted to say, okay, this is very nice. I like to use, which I like to use something like this, which gives me all my. See how it just changed the formatting, the layout of it. So very nice color. And you can play around with whatever you guys like in here. There's lots of different things. Makes it looks like you spent more time on it than you actually did. Okay. So there was one more thing I wanted to mention, and that was the old. Yes, this. So this is the way to do using the new methodology. So I'm gonna show you now the old methodology. I'm sorry, the new methodology. So this is the way I like to do it. All right, so I'm gonna insert pivot table again one more time. Right click. Oh, I'm not gonna right click this time. See how much of a habit I have of that? I'm gonna change the options again. So this is the way the new pivot table works. So I'm gonna make it bigger for everybody to see again. All right, so the way you do this is you cannot drag and drop this. See how it just doesn't work? So you have to actually click on it and it'll bring it in there. If I wanted to bring in department, you can, the best way to do it, instead of clicking, to be honest, is drag it down here. So instead of dragging over here, you have to drag down here. And just know that rows is going sideways and columns is going up and down. So if I wanted to create the same thing, I can put my salaries here, my values, and my department and my columns. So essentially it's the same way to do it, just different way. The only thing I don't like about this is watch what happens when I can't drag and drop. If I wanted to move this to the filters or something, I would have to do it over here. And to me, this is just, when I'm on my pivot table, I want to stay in the area. I don't want my mouse to move too far. See, if I'm over here working, and then I got to go all the way over here and then come back, to me, that's a waste of time. It's not being efficient. So I would like to just stay here and drag and drop like I did in the last way. But hey, I'll do it just for the heck of it. So I'll move it to the filters, and then I want to actually move it to the rows. Filters work the same way, and if I move it down to the rows, see what happens now? See how ugly this is? In column A, Angela and the department number are both. That's how it looks in this world. So to me, it's ugly. I like to see Angela in one column and the department number in the second. It's just not pretty in my opinion, and it's not friendly to use. I think I only used it one time where I've actually had a use for it, but that's why. Let me just change it the other way just to show you what I'm talking about. You guys probably think I'm crazy. So classic pivot table layout. See, now it's a separate column, and you're saying, hey, I don't like this space then, but watch my pivot table. I don't want to make this video too long, so watch my pivot table one. I'll show you how to get rid of the spacing. Okay. Quick reminder to everybody to make sure that if you know of a better way to be doing things than what I'm showing here, maybe you know of another trick which maybe I didn't mention. Again, I'm trying to focus on 90% of the Excel work, but if you know a quick little thing that I didn't show or that maybe makes it more efficient than what I'm currently showing, definitely speak out in the comments. Let me know, because you help me, you help everybody else out too. All right, same time. So thanks for watching.